Architecture isn't silent. It shapes how we talk, move, feel, and connect. A cathedral makes us whisper. A courtroom makes us sit up straighter. A crowded hallway rushes us. A quiet park slows us down. Design doesn't just hold us, it guides us, tells us when to speak, how to behave, even what to feel. Let's explore how space shapes us, because buildings aren't just backdrops, they're active participants in our lives. Imagine standing inside a massive stone dome. You whisper, and the person on the other side of the gallery hears you as if you were right beside them. This is not magic, it's architecture. The way a space is built changes the way we use our voice, often without us knowing. Sound does not behave the same way in every place. It bounces, lingers, or vanishes depending on the surfaces, shapes, and volumes that surround it. Architecture shapes not only what we hear, but how we speak. Sound travels in waves. When it hits a surface, it reflects, absorbs, or scatters. Hard surfaces like stone or glass reflect sound. Soft surfaces like curtains or carpets absorb it. In large, open spaces made of stone like churches or lecture halls, sound reflects and travels longer. This creates echo and reverberation. Echo is a sound you hear repeated clearly. Reverberation is more like a blur. Sounds overlap and seem to stretch. These effects make us speak differently. In places with a lot of echo, people tend to lower their voices. They do this without being told. It's instinct. Louder voices bounce back and cause a wash of sound that's hard to understand. So in a cathedral, someone might speak in a soft tone, using fewer words. In contrast, if you're in a space with low reverberation, like a library with carpet and padded chairs, your voice feels more private. You don't worry about being overheard. This makes you more relaxed and sometimes more open in your speech. Let's look at one famous example, the Whispering Gallery at St. Paul's Cathedral in London. It's a round gallery inside the dome of the cathedral, high above the floor. If you stand on one side and whisper into the wall, someone on the opposite side, over 100 feet away, can hear you clearly. The curve of the wall carries the sound. It hugs it. Your voice follows the curve like a train on a track. This is not something a speaker could recreate through effort alone. It's baked into the space. The room teaches you how to speak in it. Stone churches from centuries ago were not just built to look impressive. Their shapes and materials worked with the voice. Priests needed to be heard without microphones. Architects designed vaulted ceilings and domes that carried sound. These choices made people use more formal, measured language. They paused more. They raised and lowered their voices with rhythm. The building shaped the delivery. Compare that to a modern coffee shop. Many are filled with concrete, tile, and glass. These materials bounce sound around. Add the hum of machines, clinking cups, and music, and you have a loud environment. In these places, people raise their voices. They may speak faster or repeat themselves. This changes not only the volume, but also the kind of language people use. There's less subtlety. You might say, "That's crazy," instead of explaining why something is surprising. You might use louder expressions or rely on tone instead of full sentences. The space pushes you towards shorthand communication. Libraries do the opposite. Their layout and materials create quiet zones. Thick carpets, bookshelves, and soft seating absorb sound. The effect is a low-noise floor. Even small sounds like turning a page stand out. In this kind of space, people speak softly, if at all. And when they do, their vocabulary tends to stretch. You might whisper full thoughts or frame ideas more precisely because you feel like your words matter more. The silence supports depth. Lecture halls give another perspective. In these rooms, speech is often one-directional. They're shaped like shallow bowls, with the speaker at the bottom and rows of seats climbing upward. The curved ceiling and angled seats help sound carry from the stage to the back. The person speaking tends to use a clear, steady tone. There's often a slight echo, which encourages a slower pace. You don't rush a sentence when the room gives it back to you a second later. Every space creates a rule book for speech. Some rooms invite loud, quick, and informal talk. Others encourage quiet, careful expression, and we respond without needing instructions. This isn't about culture or habit alone. It's physics. It's the shape of the ceiling. It's the softness of the floor. It's how far away the walls are. It's what the air does with your voice when it leaves your mouth. Sometimes the effect is subtle. In a room with soft chairs and curtains, You might feel more at ease and speak more freely. In a hard-walled boardroom with a glass table, your voice might sound sharper, so you choose your words more carefully. These decisions don't come from strategy. They come from sound. Your brain listens to the room and tells your mouth what to do. A change in space can change a conversation. Take two people having the same talk in different places. In a tiled hallway, their voices echo and overlap. They may miss parts of what each other says. They may cut the talk short. Move that same conversation to a wood-paneled room with a rug and the tone shifts. The sounds are softer. The room holds their voices and gives them back gently. The talk may last longer and go deeper. Architects don't always design for sound, but the best ones consider it. They choose materials and shapes that help people communicate. This matters in schools, hospitals, offices, and homes. Good acoustic design can reduce stress, improve focus, and support privacy. Poor design does the opposite. It creates noise that wears people down. The buildings we walk into each day are not silent. They speak to us through sound, and we answer. Without noticing, we match our voice to the space around us. We choose our volume, our pace, even our words, based on what the walls, floors, and ceilings allow. In every conversation, architecture has the first word. When you walk into a large stone building with tall ceilings and polished floors, you lower your voice. You notice your steps echo. You might stand a little straighter. You feel watched, even if no one is there. This is how space signals formality. It tells you how to behave without speaking a word. Architecture creates a mood, and that mood shapes your actions, your tone, and even the kind of words you use. Now think about sitting at a kitchen table. There are mismatched chairs, a coffee mug in your hand, maybe sunlight coming through the window. You lean back, use slang without thinking, and say what's on your mind. There's no need to hold back or measure your tone. The space feels personal, even if it's not your own. This difference has little to do with who you're speaking to. It's about where you are. The room sets the rules. Design speaks through materials, layout, and proportions. A museum has open halls, clean lines, and distant ceilings. You walk slowly. You read labels. You whisper out of respect, not obligation. This formality isn't enforced, it's implied. The building teaches you to pause and reflect. Now imagine trying to have a loud phone call in that same space. You'd feel out of place. That's design at work. Formality changes how we speak and listen. In formal spaces, people use full sentences. They choose their words carefully. They pause before interrupting. The tone is often neutral or restrained. In informal spaces, talk becomes more casual. People speak in fragments, overlap each other's speech, and shift topics quickly. The difference isn't about grammar or vocabulary, it's about posture, pace, and tone. Let's take a courtroom as a clear example. Most courtrooms are large, with high ceilings, wooden benches, and a raised platform for the judge. The judge sits higher than everyone else. The layout creates a clear line between authority and audience. When someone speaks in court, they must wait their turn. They stand. They speak in a formal register. The words Your Honor, objection, and sustained come from legal tradition, but the way they're delivered, measured and slow, is shaped by the room. The formality of the space supports the weight of the process. Compare that with a community center. These buildings often have lower ceilings, soft chairs, and movable tables. The rooms may be used for a class one day and a club meeting the next. There is no clear front. Chairs face in circles, not rows. People speak from where they sit. The tone is lighter. Laughter is more common. The language is less filtered. In this setting, someone can say, "That makes no sense," and it comes across as a challenge, not disrespect. The space lowers the stakes. Architecture holds what some call social scripts. These are the unspoken rules about how people behave in a place. A museum script says, "Look, but don't touch." A church script says, "Speak softly and face forward." A kitchen says, "Talk freely." These scripts are not written on signs. They are in the shapes, sounds, and textures of a place. We learn them by walking through doors and sensing how to act. Sometimes, buildings ask for more than formality. They demand awe. Think of a grand government building with marble floors, a domed ceiling, and columns. You might not even need to interact with anyone to feel the need to speak carefully. The formality is in the height of the ceiling, the cool feel of the materials, and the symmetry of the room. This visual balance creates mental order. It suggests that words spoken here carry weight. We see similar effects in offices, especially those designed to show hierarchy. A large corner office with a heavy desk and high-backed chair signals power. Visitors may speak less and wait to be invited to sit. Now compare that to a shared workspace with beanbags and whiteboards. In that setting, people are more likely to speak up without waiting. They joke, brainstorm, and interrupt. The room supports this style of talk by removing visible signs of status. In some cases, the same person behaves differently based on the room they're in. A teacher may speak one way in front of a classroom and another way in the staff lounge. The voice they use at the podium carries projection and structure. At the lunch table, they use nicknames, abbreviations, and sarcasm. The person doesn't change. The setting does. Restaurants offer another example. A fine dining space with white linens and soft music creates a different kind of conversation than a casual diner. In the formal space, people may speak more quietly and avoid sensitive topics. In the informal one, talk can range from politics to personal stories. The seating arrangement adds to this. A long banquet table leads to different conversation patterns than a small round table. The shape of the space shapes the shape of the talk. Even temporary spaces like tents or pop-ups can send formal or informal signals. The materials may be flimsy, but if the design uses symmetry, uniform colors, and clear front-facing arrangements, the tone still leans formal. If it uses mismatched furniture, open sides, and community seating, it leans informal. Design does not force behavior, but it nudges it. People notice cues, sometimes consciously, often not. A person may not be able to explain why they feel nervous speaking in a formal auditorium, but their voice will shift, their body will change. They may sit up, speak slower, or choose safer words. The design does not tell them what to say, but it sets the tone for how to say it. Formality is not always about seriousness. Sometimes it's about clarity and control. Informality is not always about ease. Sometimes it's about trust. What matters is the match between the space and the goal. If a room designed for authority is used for open sharing, people may hold back. If a casual space is used for serious discussion, people may not take the topic seriously. Design supports or disrupts intention. Architecture does not end at walls. It continues in behavior. The materials around us shape the words we choose, the pace we speak, and the posture we take. Whether we are aware of it or not, every room writes part of our script. You walk into a small room. The door shuts behind you. The walls are soft-colored, the lighting low, the furniture simple and close. A chair faces another. You can't hear anything outside, and no one outside can hear you. You speak more openly in this space than you might elsewhere. You pause, then say something you've never told anyone. The room didn't make you speak, but it allowed you to. Architecture plays a quiet but powerful role in emotional openness. Spaces that feel private make people feel safe. Spaces that feel exposed do the opposite. This is not only about what we see, it's also about how close we sit to someone, how far sound travels, and what the room seems to allow. Therapy rooms show this well. A good therapy room is small, often windowless or with covered glass. The walls might be padded or built with materials that absorb sound. You won't hear other people, and they won't hear you. That silence matters. It's not just quiet, it's containment. The space tells you that what you say will stay inside, that nothing will leak out. The furniture is also part of the design. Chairs are placed close enough to feel engaged, but not so close as to invade personal space. The eye line is even. There's no desk between the therapist and the client. No one sits behind anyone. This setup supports trust. It signals that nothing is hidden. Now compare that to an open-plan office. These spaces are built to increase visibility and connection. Walls are removed. Desks are placed in long rows. People walk past each other often. Noise from conversations, printers, and footsteps blends into a constant background. In this kind of space, privacy disappears. You speak differently when you know others can hear you. Even if you trust the people around you, the space works against disclosure. You won't talk about a personal struggle or a mistake when you know someone at the next desk might overhear. You may lower your voice, use vague terms, or say nothing at all. In an open-plan office, even a whispered chat can feel like a risk. The room tells you to hold back. Containment is not only about walls, it's also about shape, lighting, and distance. A booth in a restaurant can feel more private than a wide-open living room, even if it's louder. That's because the booth surrounds you. It gives you a boundary. Boundaries help people open up. The shape of a room can support or block connection. A small, square room where people face each other directly supports focused talk. A large room with scattered furniture encourages looser interaction. People may drift in and out. Conversation stays shallow. The design gives no cue to stay, to settle, or to go deeper. Soundproofing is another part of this. Thick walls and sealed doors matter, not only for what they block, but for what they suggest. A space that contains sound also feels like it contains emotion. You know your voice won't carry. This frees your mind to say what you need to say. You don't worry about being overheard or judged from outside. That lowers tension. Lighting also sends cues. Bright, overhead lights expose. Soft, indirect light shelters. People speak more openly in warm light. They feel less on display. A well-designed therapy room uses natural or diffused lighting to ease the eyes and calm the mind. That, in turn, affects how people speak. Even posture plays a part. When chairs face each other without obstruction, and when both people are seated at the same level, there's a sense of balance. No one looms. No one hides. But in a large space where one person stands and others sit, or where people are arranged in a loose arc or spread across a wide table, intimacy fades. Distance grows, not just physical, but emotional. Let's take a scenario. Two coworkers have had a conflict. In a meeting room with glass walls, bright lights, and chairs spread apart, their conversation is likely to stay surface level. They may speak in formal terms. They may avoid emotion. Now move them to a smaller room with opaque walls, a round table, and no outside noise. Their tone shifts. They may not even notice, but they lower their voices, use I more than you, and admit uncertainty. The space helped that happen. Not every private space builds connection, though. Some closed rooms feel too tight or clinical. A tiny windowless room with fluorescent lights and metal chairs can create anxiety. That's because the space feels more like a cell than a shelter. Intimacy requires containment, but also comfort. The best spaces balance both. Community spaces can also create safe zones when designed well. A corner of a library with soft chairs and plants, shielded from the main path, may invite quiet talk. A bench on a walking path, placed slightly off the trail and facing water, may lead to a deep conversation. These moments happen not by accident, but because design created the option. The opposite is also true. A space that lacks boundaries sends a message. Keep things light. Think of a wide lobby with hard chairs, or a break room with glass doors. These are spaces for pause, not depth. You may say hello, make small talk, then move on. The architecture does not invite more. Intimacy in conversation is not only about trust between people, it's also about what the space allows. You may want to share, but if the room exposes you, visually, acoustically, or spatially, you hold back. The room becomes a third participant in the conversation. Sometimes it joins you. Sometimes it stands in the way. Designers who understand this use space to support vulnerability. They choose materials that absorb sound. They shape rooms to hold people, not just house them. They place doors where people feel they have a way out, but also a way in. They think about sightlines, noise levels, and touch points. They understand that safety is not only about walls, it's about what those walls say. A therapy room offers a model for any space where people need to speak openly. It shows how design can support attention, safety, and presence. Even outside of therapy, we can use these lessons. In homes, schools, and workplaces, space can either help or hinder connection. The key is to see that intimacy is not only emotional, it is spatial. When a room feels safe, the words come more easily. When it doesn't, they don't. You enter a vast building. The ceiling soars above your head, held up by towering columns that draw your eyes upward. Without thinking, you straighten your back. You lift your chin. You speak a little more carefully. You may not notice the change, but your body does. This is what scale does. It shapes the way we stand, move, and hold ourselves in space. Tall ceilings and vertical lines affect posture. People respond to height by standing taller. A space with great vertical reach often makes people slow down and lift their gaze. These reactions are not just habits, they are physical responses to the built environment. We adjust to the room we're in, and in doing so, we shift how we feel and act. Gothic cathedrals show this effect in full. Their design pulls the body upward. High-pointed arches, long columns, and narrow windows stretch toward the sky. The structure guides the eye. You look up and your neck follows. So does your spine. People rarely slouch in these spaces. They don't sprawl or lean. Instead, they move with purpose. The space demands presence. These cathedrals were not only places of worship, they were designed to express order, power, and humility. When you walk into one, the scale overwhelms you. You feel small, but also part of something larger. The space does not push you away, it lifts you. But in lifting you, it also reminds you of your size. This shift in posture is part of how sacred spaces work. They don't just inspire awe, they create it by design. Skyscraper lobbies use some of the same tricks. Their ceilings rise far above the ground floor. Walls are often made of glass or polished stone. Light bounces off surfaces and fills the space. Even though these buildings serve business, not religion, the spatial message is similar. Stand tall, move with focus, speak with care. In these large spaces, symmetry matters. Balanced designs with repeating lines and equal spacing make us feel that we are in an ordered place. That order brings a kind of calm. We align our bodies to match the environment. We square our shoulders. We place our feet more evenly. The building leads, and we follow. Smaller, compressed spaces create different effects. If you step into a low-ceilinged hallway, your posture may contract. You may duck your head slightly or keep your arms close to your body. This is not fear, it's spatial adjustment. Your body senses the boundaries and adapts. It takes up less space. Compressed spaces can feel cozy or tight, depending on the design. A small reading nook with soft materials and warm lighting invites relaxation. People slouch into cushions and curl up with books. A cramped elevator with hard walls and no windows makes people stiffen. They face forward. They avoid eye contact. The design sends a signal, and people adjust their posture in response. Even public transportation shows this. On a wide train platform, people spread out and stand tall. On a crowded bus with low ceilings, they hunch and brace themselves. In both cases, the shape and size of the space influence how people hold their bodies. The shift in posture also changes behavior. In tall, grand spaces, people often speak more slowly and clearly. Their movements become more deliberate. This is partly due to acoustics and visibility, but it's also a response to scale. People match their pace and tone to the space. In smaller rooms, talk becomes faster, movements quicker, and gestures more contained. Let's return to the cathedral as a case study. The typical Gothic cathedral is filled with vertical emphasis. The floor plan is long, the nave rises high, and the walls are lined with tall stained glass windows. There's very little furniture. The emptiness of the space lets sound echo and light move. These design elements make you pause. They change how you walk and where you look. Even a visitor with no religious background feels the pull of the space. They move with care, speak softly, and often stand straighter than usual. The building shapes their presence. In some cases, this reaction is learned. People have visited cathedrals and grand buildings before, and they carry expectations. But even first-time visitors respond physically. The brain reads scale before the mind explains it. This is why a child, walking into a giant hall, will often go silent or look up in wonder. The space speaks directly to the body. The effect of height is not limited to religious or corporate spaces. Sports arenas, theaters, and airports all use scale to shape behavior. Large open areas slow people down. They make them scan the space. They also influence mood. A tall space can energize or calm, depending on how it's lit and what materials it uses. Architects use this knowledge. They know that ceiling height can affect how people feel and act. A low ceiling can make a space feel grounded and intimate. A high ceiling can inspire or intimidate. The choice depends on the goal. In a school auditorium, a tall ceiling helps focus attention on the stage. In a counseling room, a lower ceiling supports comfort and trust. Symmetry adds to this effect. A symmetrical room feels stable. People center themselves within it. They mirror the order of the space in their stance and gestures. Asymmetrical rooms can feel creative or casual, but they rarely produce the same effect on posture. They invite movement, not stillness. Vertical lines also shape behavior. A room with tall windows, upright columns, and slim lighting fixtures sends the eye upward. People tend to stand or sit with more height in their spine. They are less likely to slouch or lean to the side. This is not about style. It's about alignment. The body aligns with what it sees. This can be seen in everyday places. A stairwell with tall windows and straight banisters leads people to ascend with a rhythm. A hallway with narrow walls and low lighting makes people walk faster, shoulders slightly forward. These responses may seem small, but over time they affect how we feel in a place and how we interact with others. The connection between space and stance is not always obvious. People don't often say, "This room makes me stand straighter," but they feel it. They carry themselves differently in a cathedral than in a basement. They shift their weight more in a casual cafe than in a formal hall. The body picks up on cues before the mind names them. Posture is not just a physical habit, it's a dialogue with space. The buildings around us speak through height, proportion, and rhythm, and we answer with our stance, our movement, and our presence. Every step, every pause, every glance upward is part of that exchange. You walk into a room and look around. The chairs are in rows, all facing the same way. There's a clear front. You find your seat, sit down, and stay facing forward. You don't turn to talk to the person next to you. You wait for someone to speak at the front. Without being told, you know the rules. The layout made them clear. This is how spatial arrangement guides human behavior. The way a room is shaped and the way people are positioned in it both send signals about what's allowed and what's expected. Geometry has a social language. When people face each other in a circle, they're more likely to speak, listen, and respond. When they sit in lines, they're more likely to observe and wait. These patterns shape everything from meetings to parties to classrooms. The building doesn't decide how people behave, but it sets the terms. It makes some choices easier and others harder. Take a school assembly. Students gather in a large hall. They sit in long rows of chairs or on the floor, all directed toward a stage or podium. The message is clear. Someone will speak and the rest will listen. This layout reduces interaction between the audience members. It focuses attention forward. It makes spontaneous conversation unlikely. Even shifting position feels out of place in this setup. You sit still because that's what the space asks for. Now think about a networking event. The room has no clear front. There are high tables scattered around. People stand in small clusters, usually facing each other. The space encourages movement and approach. You can enter or exit a group easily. Eye contact is common. The layout supports quick introductions and informal conversation. You talk, you move, you circle back. No one needs to be told to act this way. The space supports it. Open spaces like plazas or courtyards also send clear social messages. These spaces often lack fixed direction. They support gathering, pausing, and watching. If a bench is placed near a fountain, people might sit and talk. If the space is wide with no furniture, people might still gather, but they form their own circles or lines. The design does not force a path. Instead, it offers room for choices. That freedom changes how people relate. Corridors work differently. A long, narrow hallway encourages movement. People walk forward, not sideways. They may nod at each other, but they don't stop and talk. The layout limits turning or lingering. This design suits buildings that need flow, like hospitals or office towers. It keeps people moving in a set direction, reducing cross-traffic, but it also reduces social interaction. In a corridor, you are more likely to keep to yourself. Designers use these ideas to shape group behavior. In classrooms, the layout of desks changes the way students talk and learn. In a traditional layout, desks face the teacher. The front of the room becomes the source of information. Students listen more than they speak. If the desks are arranged in a circle or a U shape, students are more likely to speak to each other. They can see each other's faces. This setup encourages discussion and debate. The same is true in offices. A long conference table, where one person sits at the head, suggests a hierarchy. That person is seen as the leader, and others may wait for their turn to speak. In a roundtable setup, no one has a stronger position. People may speak more freely, and the tone of the meeting changes. The shape of the table becomes a tool for shaping voice and power. Groupings matter too. If seats are grouped in twos or threes, people often talk in small numbers. If they're in larger clusters, conversation shifts to group talk. Small group layouts invite personal stories and detailed exchange. Larger ones support shared ideas and general comments. These patterns appear in casual and formal settings alike. A cafe with tables for two feels different than a canteen with long communal tables. Even the angle of the chairs can shift behavior. Chairs that face directly encourage engagement. Chairs placed side by side can reduce pressure, which is useful for one-on-one talks where face-to-face eye contact might feel intense. In waiting rooms or counseling spaces, this angle can support ease. The choice is subtle but has impact. Event venues also carry these lessons. A wedding ceremony often uses rows, much like a classroom or theater. The focus is on the front, where the couple stands. People stay in place and watch. Later at the reception, the space opens up. Round tables replace rows. The dance floor creates movement. Guests shift from observer to participant. The event design mirrors the shift in social expectation. Public parks also use layout to shape use. A wide lawn allows for sports or picnics. A path lined with benches supports rest and people watching. A small enclosed area with seating can support quiet conversation. The choices people make, sit, walk, talk, or watch, follow the space's suggestion. These patterns show up in religious spaces as well. A church with pews facing an altar creates a sense of shared direction and order. A meditation room with floor cushions in a circle supports stillness and inward focus. The shape of the space reflects the goal of the activity. Returning to the school assembly and the networking event gives us a clear case study. In the assembly, students are passive participants. The speaker holds attention. The rows reduce side talk and control movement. The space supports unity through silence. In the networking event, people control their own movement. They choose whom to speak to and how long to stay. The layout allows choice and flexibility. It welcomes variety. This shift is not about right or wrong design, it's about purpose. A space for listening needs a different shape than a space for mingling. The layout helps deliver that goal. People often follow these cues without needing rules or reminders. The body reads space. It knows what to do. These effects aren't limited to large gatherings. Even at home, furniture layout shapes interaction. A sofa facing a television directs attention outward. A sofa facing another seat invites conversation. The way we arrange space, even in small rooms, can support connection or separation. The geometry of space is not just a visual choice. It guides how people stand, move, and speak. Circles bring people together. Lines direct them forward. Clusters support talk. Open space gives freedom. Each layout carries its own logic, and we move within that logic every day, often without noticing. The space sets the tone. We respond. The room begins the dialogue before a single word is spoken. You walk into a room and look around. The chairs are in rows, all facing the same way. There's a clear front. You find your seat, sit down, and stay facing forward. You don't turn to talk to the person next to you. You wait for someone to speak at the front. Without being told, you know the rules. The layout made them clear. This is how spatial arrangement guides human behavior. The way a room is shaped and the way people are positioned in it both send signals about what's allowed and what's expected. Geometry has a social language. When people face each other in a circle, they're more likely to speak, listen, and respond. When they sit in lines, they're more likely to observe and wait. These patterns shape everything from meetings to parties to classrooms. The building doesn't decide how people behave, but it sets the terms. It makes some choices easier and others harder. Take a school assembly. Students gather in a large hall. They sit in long rows of chairs or on the floor, all directed toward a stage or podium. The message is clear. Someone will speak and the rest will listen. This layout reduces interaction between the audience members. It focuses attention forward. It makes spontaneous conversation unlikely. Even shifting position feels out of place in this setup. You sit still because that's what the space asks for. Now think about a networking event. The room has no clear front. There are high tables scattered around. People stand in small clusters, usually facing each other. The space encourages movement and approach. You can enter or exit a group easily. Eye contact is common. The layout supports quick introductions and informal conversation. You talk, you move, you circle back. No one needs to be told to act this way. The space supports it. Open spaces like plazas or courtyards also send clear social messages. These spaces often lack fixed direction. They support gathering, pausing, and watching. If a bench is placed near a fountain, people might sit and talk. If the space is wide with no furniture, people might still gather, but they form their own circles or lines. The design does not force a path. Instead, it offers room for choices. That freedom changes how people relate. Corridors work differently. A long, narrow hallway encourages movement. People walk forward, not sideways. They may nod at each other, but they don't stop and talk. The layout limits turning or lingering. This design suits buildings that need flow, like hospitals or office towers. It keeps people moving in a set direction, reducing cross-traffic, but it also reduces social interaction. In a corridor, you are more likely to keep to yourself. Designers use these ideas to shape group behavior. In classrooms, the layout of desks changes the way students talk and learn. In a traditional layout, desks face the teacher. The front of the room becomes the source of information. Students listen more than they speak. If the desks are arranged in a circle or a U shape, students are more likely to speak to each other. They can see each other's faces. This setup encourages discussion and debate. The same is true in offices. A long conference table, where one person sits at the head, suggests a hierarchy. That person is seen as the leader, and others may wait for their turn to speak. In a roundtable setup, no one has a stronger position. People may speak more freely, and the tone of the meeting changes. The shape of the table becomes a tool for shaping voice and power. Groupings matter too. If seats are grouped in twos or threes, people often talk in small numbers. If they're in larger clusters, conversation shifts to group talk. Small group layouts invite personal stories and detailed exchange. Larger ones support shared ideas and general comments. These patterns appear in casual and formal settings alike. A cafe with tables for two feels different than a canteen with long communal tables. Even the angle of the chairs can shift behavior. Chairs that face directly encourage engagement. Chairs placed side by side can reduce pressure, which is useful for one-on-one talks where face-to-face eye contact might feel intense. In waiting rooms or counseling spaces, this angle can support ease. The choice is subtle but has impact. Event venues also carry these lessons. A wedding ceremony often uses rows, much like a classroom or theater. The focus is on the front, where the couple stands. People stay in place and watch. Later at the reception, the space opens up. Round tables replace rows. The dance floor creates movement. Guests shift from observer to participant. The event design mirrors the shift in social expectation. Public parks also use layout to shape use. A wide lawn allows for sports or picnics. A path lined with benches supports rest and people watching. A small enclosed area with seating can support quiet conversation. The choices people make, sit, walk, talk, or watch, follow the space's suggestion. These patterns show up in religious spaces as well. A church with pews facing an altar creates a sense of shared direction and order. A meditation room with floor cushions in a circle supports stillness and inward focus. The shape of the space reflects the goal of the activity. Returning to the school assembly and the networking event gives us a clear case study. In the assembly, students are passive participants. The speaker holds attention. The rows reduce side talk and control movement. The space supports unity through silence. In the networking event, people control their own movement. They choose whom to speak to and how long to stay. The layout allows choice and flexibility. It welcomes variety. This shift is not about right or wrong design, it's about purpose. A space for listening needs a different shape than a space for mingling. The layout helps deliver that goal. People often follow these cues without needing rules or reminders. The body reads space. It knows what to do. These effects aren't limited to large gatherings. Even at home, furniture layout shapes interaction. A sofa facing a television directs attention outward. A sofa facing another seat invites conversation. The way we arrange space, even in small rooms, can support connection or separation. The geometry of space is not just a visual choice. It guides how people stand, move, and speak. Circles bring people together. Lines direct them forward. Clusters support talk. Open space gives freedom. Each layout carries its own logic, and we move within that logic every day, often without noticing. The space sets the tone. We respond. The room begins the dialogue before a single word is spoken. You walk into a building and begin to move. Sometimes the path ahead is clear. The layout invites you forward. You follow your own pace and choose where to go next. Other times, the building takes charge. Signs, barriers, and narrow turns steer you. You follow without question. In both cases, the design of the space shapes your motion. Architecture directs your body, whether it gives you freedom or keeps you on a set path. Movement through space is not random. Architects use layout, lighting, materials, and walls to guide people. They create routes that feel natural or ones that limit choice. A well-designed space can make movement feel effortless. A poorly designed one can confuse or slow you down. Some spaces use flow to calm, others use it to control. Think of a spiral. The path curves gently, leading you in one direction without the need for signs. You don't need to stop and decide. Your body turns as the building turns. The movement feels smooth. You feel guided, not pushed. This is the experience of the Guggenheim Museum in New York. The building starts at the top and leads you down a continuous ramp. The art lines the walls along the spiral, and the floor slopes at a steady angle. You don't need to check a map. The space invites you forward. The design itself becomes part of the visit. Now think of a maze. The path splits. You take a turn, then another. You can't see far ahead. You may loop back or lose your sense of direction. This is the experience of walking through an IKEA store. The layout leads you through room after room. There are few shortcuts. The exits are hard to find. You move because the path is there, not because you chose it. At each turn, you discover a new setting, often designed to hold your attention. The flow is planned, not intuitive. You may not know where you are, but you follow the route because it offers no other clear choice. Both of these spaces are designed with intention. The Guggenheim gives you one direction, but lets you control your pace. It provides clarity and focus. You know where you are and where you're going. IKEA uses control to keep you in the space longer. The route slows you down. It forces you to pass through every section. You may not remember each turn, but the overall goal is clear: to expose you to more products and increase the chance you'll stop and buy. These two examples show different strategies for shaping flow. One supports freedom within structure. The other imposes structure to create outcome. Neither is right or wrong, but they feel different. One offers calm. The other creates a low-level tension that keeps you alert. Your body reacts. In the Guggenheim, you may walk slowly, pausing to look at the art. In IKEA, you may speed up, trying to reach a certain section. The design sets the pace. Flow also affects emotion. In a space with intuitive navigation, people feel confident. They move with ease. They make choices without stress. This kind of design supports mental clarity. It works well in places where people need to focus or reflect, like galleries, libraries, and hospitals. It uses open sightlines, natural light, and consistent materials. You know where you are by how the space feels. In contrast, maze-like designs can create frustration or urgency. They are useful in spaces built for commercial or strategic goals. Casinos use similar tricks. They hide exits, reduce natural light, and create loops that keep people inside. These choices are meant to slow decision-making. They hold attention and reduce awareness of time. The space leads, and the visitor follows without knowing how long they've stayed. Public buildings often need a balance. Airports, for example, must move large numbers of people quickly. Their layouts use wide corridors, clear signs, and repeated visual cues. When the design works, passengers move without pause. When it fails, confusion builds. People stop, check maps, ask for directions. The flow breaks. Stress increases. Schools and universities also deal with movement. A hallway that is too narrow can clog. A layout without sightlines can feel unsafe. Classrooms placed around a central hub create smoother transitions and fewer collisions. Movement patterns affect not only speed but mood. When people move easily through a space, they feel more in control. When space works against them, tension builds. Homes use flow for comfort. An open floor plan allows natural movement from room to room. A closed plan creates separation. Each supports a different kind of living. In a home where you can see the kitchen from the living room, people move back and forth more often. The space invites connection. When doors and walls close off each room, the movement slows. Privacy increases. The layout defines how people live and interact. Museums often think carefully about flow. A good exhibit moves you forward without forcing it. You see the next room before you finish the current one. Light guides your eye. Narrow points slow you down before a major display. Wider spaces let you pause. The entire visit becomes a sequence shaped by space. You don't need to ask where to go next. The building shows you. Outdoor spaces also shape flow. A park path that curves gently encourages wandering. A straight path suggests purpose. A plaza with open sightlines supports gathering. A courtyard with multiple exits offers freedom of movement. Designers can use trees, benches, and changes in surface to suggest pace and direction. These cues are soft but effective. Movement is more than getting from one point to another. It shapes how people feel, what they notice, and how long they stay. When the flow is too rigid, people feel trapped. When it is too open, they may feel lost. The best designs offer direction without pressure. They allow choice within structure. The difference between intuitive and imposed flow shows up across many settings. In retail, entertainment, public infrastructure, and even in how we enter and exit our own homes. A front door that opens into a tight entry hall slows you down. A wide foyer invites you in. A staircase that faces the entrance directs your gaze upward. A hallway that ends in a window draws you toward light. Designers make these choices with purpose. They understand that bodies respond to space. Eyes follow light. Feet follow open paths. When the path turns, we turn. When it narrows, we slow. When it opens, we breathe. These responses shape our time in a place. They affect how we remember it. Whether you feel free, frustrated, or focused in a space often begins with how you move through it. The building makes the first move. You follow, or try to. You step off a subway train. The air feels cooler. The floor is hard and smooth. Overhead lights repeat in a straight line, pulling your eye forward. The walls are tiled. The signs are clear but simple. You walk quickly without thinking. Everyone else moves fast too. This isn't a place to linger. The space sets the pace. You respond to it without needing a clock or a push. This is how architecture controls rhythm. The design of a space shapes how fast or slow we move through it. Escalators, steps, floor changes, and lighting all act like cues in music. They set a beat. When the floor becomes rougher or the light gets warmer, you slow down. When surfaces stay flat and bright, you keep moving. These elements don't just fill space, they guide movement. In subway stations, everything is built for speed. The floor is flat and uniform. Materials are chosen to handle heavy foot traffic. There's little detail in the surroundings. Repetition helps with direction. Lights are spaced evenly. The walls repeat patterns. Doors and gates follow a strict rhythm. The design keeps people on task. It tells them, get in, move forward, get out. Now think about a luxury mall. You enter and everything changes. The light is soft, often from hidden sources. The floor may change from tile to carpet or from stone to wood. Escalators curve or glide gently between levels. The air smells different. It's quieter. Music plays in the background. You slow your steps. You browse. You turn your head more. The space asks you not to rush. This contrast is not accidental. It comes from design. Malls use changes in texture to control tempo. A shiny surface near a store entrance catches light and pulls your attention. A soft rug near seating invites a pause. These shifts tell your feet what to do. You may not notice the floor changed, but your pace adjusts. Texture acts like a speed limit. Escalators also guide rhythm. Unlike stairs, they set a steady speed. They create a pause in walking, but not in motion. You step on, and your body adjusts. Your mind shifts too. Escalators inside subway stations often rise at a sharp angle and move fast. They keep people flowing. Escalators in malls are wide, slow, and sometimes even curved. They encourage looking around, not just moving up. Stairs send a stronger signal. They require effort. You plan for them. You slow down before you reach them, then climb with rhythm. That rhythm depends on the height and depth of each step. Steep, narrow steps make people hurry. Wide, shallow ones make them slow down. Architects use this to shape how people approach a space. Lighting plays a similar role. Bright, even lighting speeds things up. It removes shadow and softens detail. Your brain reads the space as clear and open. You walk faster. Shadow and dim light do the opposite. They break the path into sections. Pools of light slow the eye. They encourage rest or caution. Think of a hallway lit by small lamps instead of overhead lights. The pace slows. Repetition also sets tempo. A row of identical arches, columns, or windows creates a rhythm you feel in your steps. When that rhythm breaks, say a larger doorway or an open space, you pause. You notice the change. That moment of pause can be used to draw attention or reset the mood. Galleries often use this approach. A series of similar rooms with paintings leads to a larger space with a sculpture. The change in rhythm changes your pace and focus. Texture underfoot is another tool. Hard surfaces make footsteps louder. You become aware of your movement. In quiet buildings like museums or libraries, designers sometimes use soft floors or rugs to reduce noise. The silence encourages slower movement. You don't want to be the one person whose shoes echo. In public buildings, the speed of movement can reflect purpose. Hospitals need efficient movement. Floors are smooth, colors are neutral, and signage is clear. But in waiting areas, designers add texture, plants, art, soft seating to ease stress. That shift tells people they can slow down, even if only for a while. Airports use flow and rhythm to manage stress and timing. Walking areas are wide and bright. Shops break the path, encouraging browsing. Moving walkways increase pace, while gates with carpet and low ceilings slow it down again. These shifts prepare people for the change between waiting and boarding. Case studies show how different goals shape design. Subway stations, like those in New York or London, use function over comfort. Materials are chosen for durability, not softness. Paths are straight and clear. Every element says, move quickly, stay alert, keep going. The space reinforces urgency. Luxury malls, by contrast, are built to stretch time. Designers use curves, soft textures, warm lighting, and seating to slow the pace. The longer people stay, the more likely they are to shop. The rhythm is unhurried. Floors may sparkle, walls may shine, but nothing feels rushed. Even escalators and elevators move at a relaxed speed. There are few clocks. The design says, take your time. In both cases, architecture sets the rhythm, not with music or signs, but with structure, material, and light. These cues shape how we move and how we feel while moving. A fast space can make people alert or anxious. A slow space can calm or distract. The key is the fit between design and use. People respond to these cues without thinking. They don't need to ask how fast to walk. Their bodies read the space. Eyes follow light. Feet feel texture. Legs adjust to slope and step. When the rhythm feels right, the space works. When it feels off, people notice, even if they can't say why. Designers use these tools carefully. A hallway with a window at the end feels faster than one without. A narrow path feels quicker than a wide one. Even ceiling height can affect speed. Low ceilings compress space and increase movement. High ceilings open it and reduce pace. These are not just visual effects, they shape motion. Good design does not push, it pulls. It offers a rhythm that feels natural. It leads people through space without force. That rhythm can change from one part of the building to another. A fast entry becomes a slow lounge. A bright hallway becomes a quiet corner. These changes support function and mood. You may not think about rhythm when you walk through a space, but your body knows. It matches the tempo of the floor, the light, the steps. It slows where the space softens and speeds up where the space clears. Architecture does not just hold you, it moves you. Step by step, pace by pace, it shapes your path. You walk into a space and feel something before you understand it. The light might be soft or harsh. The walls might curve or stand sharp. The air may carry warmth from wood or a chill from steel. These impressions shape your mood. They do so without words or explanation. Architecture affects emotion because it touches how the body senses the world. The materials, layout, and textures around us speak directly to the nervous system. Warm materials like wood invite touch. They signal comfort. Stone, when used with care, brings calm and weight. Glass can feel open and bright or cold and distant, depending on how it's used. Steel often feels sterile, efficient, or hard. Concrete in large blocks can feel heavy or even oppressive. Designers choose materials not only for function, but for feeling. These feelings shape how we move, how long we stay, and how we remember a space. Light plays a major part in this process. Natural light changes across the day, offering variation and rhythm. A room that receives morning sun feels different than one lit only by ceiling fixtures. Soft shadows and indirect light lower stress. Bright, direct light increases alertness, but can also create tension if overused. The body responds to light as part of its internal rhythm. Architecture that understands this can calm or energize without saying a word. Curves also affect how people feel. A space with curved walls or arched ceilings feels softer and often more human. The body feels invited rather than managed. Sharp corners and straight lines suggest structure and control. Too many in one space can make it feel rigid. A mix of both often works best. Movement flows through curves. Pause and focus happen in structured corners. Each shape has its own tone. The brain responds to space through systems that track orientation, memory, and emotion. The hippocampus, a part of the brain involved in navigation and memory, becomes active when we move through new or complex spaces. It helps us remember where we are and where we've been. Environments with too little variation offer no stimulation. They can confuse or bore. Environments that are too complex or poorly laid out can stress the mind, making people feel lost. A well-designed space supports memory and movement. It helps us feel grounded. One of the clearest examples of emotional architecture is the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin. The design uses large concrete slabs arranged in a grid. From the outside, the blocks appear low, but as you walk inward, the ground drops. The slabs rise. The sky disappears. You are surrounded by gray. The path is narrow. You see people from far away, then lose sight of them. The feeling is not created by signs or explanations. It is created by space, light, and material. The design creates confusion, separation, and silence. It doesn't explain the history. It lets you feel a part of it. The emotional weight comes from how your body moves and responds to what the building does to you. Contrast that with hospital design, where recent research focuses on recovery. Studies show that spaces with natural light, plants, views of nature, and gentle materials help people heal faster. This approach is called biophilic design. It works with the body's natural response to green space. Patients in rooms with windows recover more quickly and report lower stress. Materials like wood and fabric reduce the sense of sterility. Layouts that allow easy navigation reduce confusion. Hospitals that feel more like homes than factories support both mental and physical health. Texture also plays a role. A smooth wall might feel clean but distant. A wall with slight grain or fabric feels more human. Floor materials matter too. Stone suggests permanence. Carpet suggests comfort. Polished surfaces feel formal. Rough ones feel natural. The mix of textures helps set a tone. In a gallery, smooth floors and sharp lights support focus. In a lounge, softer textures invite rest. Memory lives in material. A brick wall may remind someone of school. A tiled hallway might bring back hospital visits. These associations build over time and shape how people react to space. Culture adds another layer. In one country, marble floors signal status. In another, they may suggest coldness. The same wooden bench may read as rustic in one place and modern in another. Designers often work with these associations, not just around beauty, but around belonging. Navigation matters too. When people can move through space without stress, they feel more relaxed. A building that is easy to read, where paths are clear, where corners open to new spaces, where signs are minimal because they are not needed, gives users confidence. When people feel lost, even in small ways, they become tense. The brain tries harder to orient itself. This takes energy and adds pressure. Cultural symbols in architecture can create comfort or distance. A room with familiar patterns, smells, or colors may feel like home to some and foreign to others. Designers of public space often have to consider this. A hospital that welcomes people from many backgrounds may use neutral colors and materials to avoid alienating any group. A community center may include locally sourced wood or artwork to reflect local identity. The emotional life of a building comes from how it is shaped, lit, touched, and moved through. It does not have to impress or overwhelm. In fact, the most powerful emotional buildings often appear quiet. They let you feel something without telling you what that should be. The Holocaust Memorial gives no instructions. It becomes powerful because it places the visitor in a space where the body must find its own way. The discomfort becomes the message. Hospitals that support recovery don't only fight disease. They reduce stress through design. They let patients feel like people, not cases. They build dignity through space. A hallway with a window gives light and orientation. A waiting room with plants and soft seating changes how people feel about their time there. A recovery room with wood paneling and views of nature improves mood and supports healing. Design choices reach deep. A wall is not just a boundary. A window is not only for light. A bench is not only a seat. Each one carries weight, texture, tone, and temperature. These signals reach the body first, then they reach the mind. They shape mood, memory, and even health. When you walk through a space, your senses take in more than you can name. You feel the pressure of height, the calm of shadow, the welcome of warmth. You read the material like you read a face. It tells you what kind of place this is and what kind of person you can be here. You carry that feeling with you long after you leave, not because you were told to, but because the building showed you how to feel, one stone at a time. You walk through a public space and find yourself on a path that wasn't marked. The sidewalk is a few feet away, but people have made their own trail across the grass. These are desire lines, unplanned routes made by repeated use. They show where people want to go, not where they're told to. When architects pay attention to desire lines, they begin to see how people actually move and gather. And that's the heart of building community through design. Space has power. It can bring people together or push them apart. A bench placed near a tree across from a cafe becomes a place to pause. A fountain at a crossroads invites people to stop and watch. These small moves create connection without forcing it. This is called triangulation. When three or more elements, like a place to sit, something to see, and a path to cross, come together, they create the conditions for social contact. People meet, talk, linger, and return. This kind of design encourages community without needing events or rules. The High Line in New York City is a clear example. Once an elevated train line, it sat unused for decades. Instead of tearing it down, the city turned it into a public park. The designers left parts of the track visible, added paths, benches, trees, and art. The result is a long, narrow park that moves above the city streets. But more than that, it creates moments for interaction. People walk, pause, lean on railings, watch others, and talk. There are wide areas and narrow ones, open lawns and quiet nooks. The space supports both movement and rest. It invites chance encounters and shared experience. It became a community space not through programming, but through thoughtful design. Now look at the opposite example, the Pruitt-Igoe housing project in St. Louis. Built in the 1950s, it was designed to house low-income families in clean, modern buildings. But the design misunderstood how people lived together. The towers were tall and isolated. Long indoor hallways had no natural light or clear sightlines. Elevators only stopped on certain floors, forcing residents to use dark stairwells. Outdoor spaces were either too empty or poorly maintained. There were no real gathering spots, no places for people to sit, meet, or watch their children play. Within 2 decades, crime had increased, and the buildings fell into disrepair. By the 1970s, they were torn down. The project failed not because of poverty alone, but because the design ignored the needs of community life. When people can see each other, hear each other, and share space safely, they form bonds. This doesn't always mean deep friendships. It often means small gestures, a nod, a short chat, a smile. These moments build trust over time. Good public spaces create conditions for these small connections. They don't force contact, but they allow it. This is spatial democracy, the idea that everyone has access to space that supports human presence. You can see this in well-designed libraries, parks, and community centers. A reading area with soft chairs near a window invites quiet time. A corner with a few tables and a coffee machine draws people together. The design does not direct behavior, but it shapes what's possible. People gather not because they must, but because the space makes it easy. In contrast, poor design often limits contact. Streets with no sidewalks reduce walking. Parks with few benches or no shade don't invite rest. Housing units with no shared outdoor areas isolate families. Design choices that ignore scale, comfort, or access can lead to disconnection, even in crowded places. Schools offer another example. A building with wide hallways, places to sit, and open courtyards supports informal interaction. Students talk between classes, meet after school, or work together in groups. A school designed with long, closed corridors and no gathering spots keeps people moving but not connecting. Over time, this shapes how students relate to each other and to the space itself. Even something as simple as a window can change how people feel. A room with a view onto a public street makes someone feel part of the city. A wall with no openings creates a barrier. This applies to ground floors of apartment buildings, offices, and stores. Active street fronts, where people can see in and out, build trust and safety. Blank walls do the opposite. Plazas and town squares have always worked as gathering spaces. Their success often comes from proportion. A space that's too large feels empty. One that's too small feels crowded. But when the scale is right, people use them for markets, festivals, and everyday meetings. Add a few trees, places to sit, and food nearby, and the space becomes alive. The design allows flexibility. People shape the space as they use it. Community also depends on access. If a space is hard to reach, it doesn't matter how well it's designed. Parks behind fences, plazas surrounded by busy roads, or buildings without ramps or elevators exclude by default. Public design must support a range of needs: children, older adults, people with disabilities. The goal is not to serve one type of person, but to support many kinds of use. The High Line worked because it gave people something to do and somewhere to be, without requiring anything from them. It didn't ask for loyalty or identity. It gave space. The Pruitt-Igoe failure showed what happens when space does not offer safety, comfort, or shared purpose. People withdrew. Tension grew. The structure itself became part of the problem. Designers today often work with community groups to avoid these outcomes. They listen to how people already use space. They watch where people walk, sit, and talk. They look for desire lines and make them official paths. They add benches where people pause. They remove fences where none are needed. They ask, what do people need to gather, to feel safe, to be seen? It is not always about beauty. A beautiful plaza with no seating or shade will remain empty. A plain courtyard with shelter, light, and places to pause will fill with life. Good design understands human behavior. It makes space for it. And over time, those spaces help people feel connected, not just to a building or a street, but to each other. Stand in a room, walk down a street, or sit in a public space, and your body adjusts without being told. You speak more quietly, slow your pace, or shift your posture. These changes aren't just habits. They are responses to the space around you. Buildings shape how we speak, how we move, how we feel, and how we relate to others. Architecture does not sit in the background. It leads the way. The voice changes in a cathedral, not because of rules, but because the sound echoes in stone. Posture shifts in a tall hall because the ceiling draws the eye upward. In a tight corridor, your steps quicken. In a soft, round room, you may feel safe enough to say something personal. These aren't accidents. They are reactions to material, light, height, and layout. The shape of space becomes the shape of behavior. When spaces are formal, we act with care. In places that feel private, we open up. When architecture creates clear flow, we follow it. When it's confusing or closed off, we hesitate. Every part of a building, how high it rises, what it's made of, how it groups or separates people, sends a message. That message becomes a script. We follow it without being told. Think of a courtroom. One person stands above the rest. Everyone faces forward. Authority is clear. Now think of a park bench beside a fountain. There's no clear front, no assigned seat. You can stay or go. You can talk or stay quiet. The design allows freedom. One space asks for order, the other for ease. Both guide behavior through form. This pattern holds in homes, offices, schools, hospitals, and streets. Architecture isn't just shelter. It's a tool that shapes daily life. It carries memory, tone, and intention. When used well, it supports connection, clarity, and comfort. When used poorly, it creates stress, confusion, or isolation. Spaces tell stories. They invite or exclude. They open or close. A narrow hallway may hold tension. A wide plaza may release it. A tall window can frame the world. A low ceiling can press down. These choices affect more than looks. They reach the nervous system. They change how we breathe, how we sit, how we speak. To walk through a city with awareness is to read a language without words. You begin to see how benches invite rest, how staircases claim power, how curves ease the body, and repetition sets a pace. These are not decorations. They are instructions. As neuroscientist Kate Jeffrey wrote, we are creatures of the place we're in. The next time you enter a space, pause. Notice what your voice does. Notice how your spine shifts. You are not just in the space is in you.